Hello, hello, and welcome to my Lunch and Learn, where each and every week we explore topics to help you elevate your mindset, be at your best, and radically expand your life. And today we are talking about something that affects everyone, especially high achieving women, why you can't rely on willpower and what to do instead. So, if you are someone who starts really strong but struggles to remain consistent, maybe if you've ever just said, I need to try harder, and you still find yourself stuck, procrastinating, or burning out. Or maybe you're tired of using sheer force to move forward and you want to actually feel at ease and in a state of momentum. Stick around because this is exactly what we're talking about today. And what we're talking about today is going to change the way you approach everything. But first, let me know where you're tuning in from. If you are catching the replay, type in replay in the comments. And if it's your first time, type in first time in the chat because I thank you for being here. I truly appreciate you and your presence. Now, some of you know me, some of you don't. If we have not yet met, I'm Larissa McCouch. I'm Canada's leading abundance mentor, master results coach, and CEO of Abundance Academy. And I work with smart, really driven professional women who have good lives, but know they're capable of so much more. And they want more clarity, more meaning, more freedom, and a lot less second guessing and burnout and busyness. They have done the work, yet they're still repeating some of the same patterns over and over and over again. And that's where I come in. Now, years ago, I always prided myself on being a hard worker. Okay. I never thought I was smart. I never thought I could rise above everyone through just my own talents. But what I did learn is something called work ethic. And I came to learn that if I just pushed harder and harder and harder, I got results that I wanted. And I started to think that if I just kept working harder, I would get better results. So I studied my tail off. I made vision boards, I wrote goals, I journaled, I went to seminars, I hustled in any business that I was involved in. I would be the one that got there early and stayed late. I would treat everything I did like just with impeccable effort. And what happened is I felt like I was making two steps forward and one step back. So I was moving ahead, but it was hard. It was a grind. And it wasn't until I realized I'm at the cottage right now. And I remember there was a week where I was spending at the cottage, and we do a lot of online events. And I did an online event and I did it at the cottage. And then I had people that book calls at the cottage. And I'd never done that before. Before it was always in my office, very formal, very structured. And there was a different kind of energy. And yeah, I was still working, but I was having fun. And I started to take calls. So these were phone calls before Zoom calls were even a big thing. And I remember I took a couple of calls just sitting outside. I would be in different areas. I felt lighter. I was having so much more fun. And I had been in a place where I literally had cleansed myself of clutter, of mental, both mental clutter and physical clutter, but also I had undergone a process of deep emotional transformation. And it was just such a different way of being. And I ended up getting the best results I'd ever gotten in my business that particular week while I was working in a state of ease, while I was having fun. And it was a big eye opener because that was the first time in my life where I realized I could do less and achieve more. And it didn't have to be through hustling and grinding. I had to go deeper and do some of the softer things, some of the less visible actions. But when I did, the results were so much more profound. So let's take a look at what willpower actually is. Okay, so willpower is this conscious effort to control your impulses, to delay gratification, or force behavior through sheer determination. Willpower is really about you making things happen, and there is a time and place. Willpower, it's critical for us in our lives. However, if you muscle through everything, what happens is, oh my goodness, you get exhausted. Habits, on the other hand, are automatic behaviors that are created through repetition and anchored in identity. And so you might need to use willpower in order to start a habit, but once things are habits, they don't take as much effort or energy. They just happen automatically. And what's really important for you to know is that you have a conscious mind, like the logical thinking mind, and an unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind is the powerful part of your mind that stores beliefs, emotional memory, patterns, and it actually drives 95% of your behavior. So while willpower is a conscious effort, that's like where 5% of your results actually come from. If you start really working with your unconscious mind, creating habits that are automatic, working with your belief system, working with other energetic factors that actually drive 95% of your behavior, that is a powerful place to be and way to be. We often have this emotional clutter, okay, in our lives. We It's like a car that doesn't get cleaned. The emotional clutter is like unprocessed emotions that, when unresolved, they create inner conflicts that slow you down mentally, emotionally, and physically, and you can't see clearly, just like a very dirty windshield or like a very dirty car. It gets cluttered because this emotional clutter starts to stick. Now, when it comes to willpower, I remember I'd done some studies about willpower with Bob Proctor, and he talked about the power of will as one of our mental faculties and being a really good thing. And I think it absolutely is. It has its time and place. But then a few years ago, I started reading this book, Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. And it got me really thinking about the differences between willpower and using it in a constructive way and defaulting to it. And I think a lot of times we default to willpower because we just don't know another way. And he talks about willpower as a flawed strategy because it ignores things like the role of identity, the power of your environment. So huge. He talks a lot about the power of your environment and also emotional context. And these are really important considerations that most people completely overlook when defaulting to willpower. Neuroscience, it actually shows us that decision making, focus, motivation, these are regulated by your prefrontal cortex, which tires easily under it tires under emotional load. It tires when you have unresolved conflict. So this part of your brain that is designed to make decisions, that's designed to help you focus, that's designed to help you be motivated, um, it's not going to work when you have too much emotional load, when you have too much stress in your world. You just won't be able to use your brain. Literally, it won't work very well. It'll be like a car that needs an oil change. Okay, a lot of car metaphors today, a lot of car metaphors, but you get sluggish. Things can start to break down. And habits, they form not just from effort alone, but also from emotional safety. They form from identity congruence and internal clarity. So when you're looking to form habits, you've got to feel okay energetically. You've got to make sure that the identity you're holding of yourself aligns with the habits that you're looking to create. Because you can just say, yeah, let's do this habit. But if you don't believe you're the person that carries out a habit like that, there's going to be an internal conflict. And so you need to have a lot of that clarity, that we say you need clarity, confidence, and conviction to move forward, but you really absolutely need that internal clarity to fuel things forward. And so this really brings us to the point that willpower doesn't work. Yes, willpower can get things started, willpower can have its place, but long term in your life, it's not a sustainable strategy. And so I want to just point out a few different things that you need to know about willpower. Okay, so first, willpower is a finite resource. Okay, so willpower is a finite resource. Research shows that willpower behaves like a muscle. And when you work your muscle, you're working your muscle, you're working your muscle, you're working your muscle, you're working your muscle, it will start to fatigue over time. Okay. And it's good. Muscles need to fatigue in order to grow. However, when you're in trying to navigate constant decisions, you're emotionally overwhelmed, maybe you're juggling work, family, expectations, your willpower starts to run out fast. And that's why you might start your day strong and crash by mid-afternoon. That's why you might binge scroll at night after a productive day and go like, why did I end it this way? That's why you might know what to do, but avoid doing it anyway, because your brain is conserving energy. It's not failing you. And so you don't have the second thing I want you to know is you don't have a motivation problem. You have an emotional load problem. So a lot of us are motivated to the nth degree, but we just can't get ourselves to do certain things. And a lot of women, I see this in many of our clients, they don't lack motivation. They are top performers, they are high achievers, but they're just emotionally full. Their cup is overflowing, but not with the stuff they want. It's too full. There's no more space to put things. And so what happens is your nervous system is carrying old fears, it's carrying guilt, it's carrying unresolved frustration, perfectionism, chronic pressure, and it you get full. This clutter, it acts like a static in the background, and it drowns out your clarity, it drowns out your joy, it drowns out your creativity. And if you think about clutter, right? When your house is cluttered, when your physical space is cluttered, it affects your energy. But I know Wednesdays we have a woman come to clean and cook and help us around the house, and I love being away when she comes because the way I leave my house and the way I arrive to my house is so different. Why? Because she cleans up. It's just I get excited. I'm like, wow, the house smells different. It feels different. I see the floors are cleaner. I see the countertops. Like I tidy my kitchen, but somehow when she leaves, the jars and the countertop just looks a little bit different. It's amazing. I love seeing that cleanliness, and no amounts of apps or to-do lists can fix this, or no amount of extra effort is going to fix a lot of this static in your mental and energetic background. Okay, just like you have to clean your house and you have to actually take the time to do it, you've got to clean your internal house. You've got to clean your emotional house, because it's not a tactical issue. It's not part of your to-do list. It's an emotional one. So, third point, habits don't stick when they clash with your identity. So this is really about alignment. If you unconsciously see yourself as the busy one, the hard worker, the one who never follows through, or the one who always puts others first, your actions are going to return to those scripts. No matter how disciplined you try to be, you might temporarily be able to shift things, but especially when under pressure, it's not going to stick. Yeah, so Bunny, the topic today is why you can't rely on willpower and what to use instead. Yeah. So James Clear from Atomic Habits, he wrote the book Atomic Habits, a fabulous book if you haven't read it. He says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And when you start to build systems in your life to support your identity, that is a powerful place to be. So one of the most powerful, I'm going to call it a system today, systems that you must address is your self-image. This is how you see yourself. Like, how do you walk, talk, act, and believe? There are so many systematic aspects that you can put into your world and into your life so that the identity you claim you want, you can actually follow through on. So let's say a lot of times when people first get into business, maybe you had a successful career and you're like, wow, I'm really successful in working in a business. I'm a high achiever. I'm at the top of my field. But then when people first start their businesses, they don't necessarily have an identity of a business owner. And so they have the identity of a hard worker, of a disciplined employee, but not necessarily a business owner. And for many people, that's one of the primary reasons they quit, because they're doing the work, but they're not seeing the results. They feel like a fraud. They feel like they don't know enough, and they're not walking, talking, acting, believing, and behaving like a business owner, versus those that embody the identity of a business owner. They might do a lot of the things incorrectly, but they believe they are this person, and so they act like this person. They pull themselves out of messes and kerfuffles. They build their business, they strategize, they clean up their systems. And as if you look at the people that have stuck it out through business, they see themselves as business people. So it's absolutely critical that you have the identity that you're fully and wholeheartedly embodying. One of the things that we're doing at the Abundance Academy is we're holding a self-image intensive right now, an 8-week deep dive into self-image. And this is so incredibly powerful because a lot of times we might think of our self-image and go, oh yeah, here's the little self-image script. I did a great live, or I did a great masterclass about that a few weeks ago, about how to do and how to write a self-image script. If you want access to the replay, you can just type in self-image script in the chat and my team will send you the replay. So just check your DMs. We'll make sure to get it to you. But when it really comes to self-image, you want to build and cultivate and fully express it on multiple different levels, because self-image is one of your greatest paradigms, and how you see yourself needs to align with your goals, and your habits must also support that. And when they're all aligned, habits can stick because you believe you're the kind of person that can carry out those habits. Fourth point is true change requires a new internal system. Okay, so true change requires a new internal system. So instead of forcing behavior change, you need to reprogram the unconscious mind. You need to release emotional clutter. You need to truly reinforce your identity level habits that are aligned with who you're actually becoming. And one of the processes that we use is the emotional cleanup process. This is not about managing emotions, but it's really about releasing them from the root so they no longer are running the show. There's many different ways to do this, but the methods that we use, we call it an emotional cleanup. So we have a 3-part series that we walk our clients through that choose to go through this emotional cleanup process here at the Abundance Academy. It's one of those things that you kind of want to do like spring cleaning, or I find emotional cleanups are great to do in the summer because it's slow, it's reflective, it's just this nice quiet time, and it's a different pace, but it's really about managing your emotions and letting them go from the deepest level so they're no longer running the show. You're always going to have emotions. You need to honor your emotions, but you don't want them to control you in unconstructive ways. And so often we just default to what we're used to and what's comfortably uncomfortable. So the best way to clear the path to focus, flow, and fulfillment is literally cleansing those internal emotions and making sure that you are aligned with the you that you need to be. So let me just recap those 4 points. First, willpower is a finite resource. It's not going to keep going forever and ever because you will tire out. Second, you don't have a motivation problem. You have an emotional load problem. You're not lacking motivation. If you're a high achieving woman, you are just emotionally full, and you cannot add anything else to your world, to your nervous system, to your emotional realm, because it's overflowing and there's no more space. Third, habits don't stick when they clash with your identity. So your habits, they must align with your identity. And last but not least, true change requires a new internal system, especially when it comes to this emotional system. And so what the good news is, you don't need to try harder. You do need to go deeper. So what do you need to do about it to go deeper? So if you want to actually go deeper, you need to use tools that work with your unconscious mind. Okay, conscious mind, 5% of your results, unconscious mind, 95% of your results. Second, you need to create emotional breathing room. If your cup is full, You need to create a little bit more space so that you can actually start to function, so your brain can work for you, so your emotions can have the space to be constructive. And then last but not least, reprogram your internal GPS so it supports you and doesn't sabotage you and your goals. This is what we essentially do in the emotional cleanup process. We work with the unconscious mind. We create a ton of emotional breathing room. It's like the things that used to irritate you, they just don't bother you anymore. You're just like, wow, this doesn't bother me anymore. And it's simple stuff, really powerful results. And then we work with you to reprogram your internal GPS so that you can clear your biggest blocks in your nervous system and actually get moving again. So if today's talk has resonated, if you're like, this is really landing for me, I'd love to invite you to learn more about the emotional cleanup process if you're actually serious about doing something like this for yourself. So if you're interested in learning more about the emotional cleanup process, mention emotional cleanup in the chat. We've just recently done an info session about it, and we can definitely get that to you, or we can even have a conversation about what that might look like for you. So just mention emotional cleanup in the chat, or send us a direct message and we'll get that info out to you. But essentially, trying to change your life with willpower is like trying to drive across the country with a flat tire and no GPS. You need a full system reset. You need alignment. You need clarity from the inside out. So if you're ready to go deeper, if you're ready to make some massive shifts in your life, get access to our emotional cleanup info session. Just mention emotional cleanup in the chat and we will help you out. So with that, you have a great day. We'll be back again next week with another valuable lunch and learn topic. So have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.